joining me now to discuss this is Dr Taj Hargey. He's an Imam and historian. Good morning to you, Taj.
Good morning.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I mean, another day, another terror attack in mainland Europe. Many people very fearful that this is going to happen here. We've certainly gone through spates of these sorts of attacks. Just some of the more details of this. This man is he's a naturalised a Frenchman. He's born to Iranian parents. Sorry, French national, born to Iranian parents. He was a known radical Islamist. He shouted Allahu Akbar, Arabic, for God is greatest, as he attacked 3 different men, stabbing one man, stabbing another British man in the eye, hitting another man with his wife and children with a hammer to the head. He was arrested on the scene on Saturday. This is Arman Rajbatpour Miandob. He's the alleged attacker and killer in this case. But he was known to the police. Why? Because he already had a conviction as a radical Islamist. He was sentenced in 2016 to 4 years in prison for a failed attack in the La Défense region area. Yet again, somebody known to the authorities commits allegedly horrific crimes, and everyone sort of shrugs and moves on. What did you make of this?
Well, firstly, let me express my condolences to the person that lost their lives and their family and people that have been hurt in the attack. What we need to understand that this is a lone wolf attack. I mean, that's the only redeeming feature about this. It wasn't an organized, orchestrated campaign to inflict maximum damage. This man clearly also has psychological problems. He was been in jail. He's been referred to psychiatric help and so forth. And yet the authorities let him go, so to speak. So in a way, we need also to put the blame fairly and squarely at law enforcement, whether it is in the UK or in France or any other country. If they identify anyone who's a potential troublemaker, terrorist, someone who will inflict damage and harm on civilians, they need to throw the book at them and keep them either in secure detention or in some sort of psychiatric institution if they are disturbed. So I think the only, like I said, redeeming feature of this particular horrendous act in Paris yesterday is that it was limited. I mean, one person clearly died, other people were wounded.
But we often have this, don't we? And this is what makes it so much harder for the authorities, whether it's in France or Germany or Belgium or Netherlands or Sweden or Britain or anywhere else, makes it so much harder to track these people down and to find them to prevent these attacks because, of course, they're not making contact online. Now, he apparently was talking to the police. He was saying he was angry and upset about the number of Palestinians dying in Gaza. And again, somehow this is laid out as sort of, this is an excuse. So, you know, as if, well, if I'm unhappy about something, I could just go and stab people and saying that France was in collusion. Now, this is the thing. Now, you are not only an Islamic scholar. We've spoken to you many times from the show before. You're also with the Oxford Institute for British Islam, very much an organisation about inclusivity and moderate Islam, because we know there are many, many, many Muslims on this planet who don't subscribe to this Islamist political violent ideology. And yet we do see again and again, many of the so-called community representatives of Muslims in this country seem to not have that big a problem with it.
Yeah, but for example, you said that the cops in Paris spoke to this man or whatever. Now, hopefully they would have had an Islamic expert there with him and to tell this man, this criminal, I call him a criminal, that he's actually violated Quranic law. The Quran says very specifically in chapter 5, verse 32, if you kill someone, it's like you've killed the whole world. So who gives him the right? Yes, he may be angry and upset at what's happening in Gaza and Palestine and in the Holy Land, but it doesn't give him the right to snuff out someone's life. So I think when we deal with these fanatics, fruitcakes, fundamentalists, fascists, we need to have theological answers for them, to talk to them in the language that they understand, not in the language that you and I may be wanting to understand.
But the report suggests that he, and we've seen this again and again, has been radicalised. You know, he's an alleged, we have to say he's the alleged suspect in this, but that he has already been convicted, but that he'd been radicalised in prison. We see this again and again, though, don't we?
Yes. Absolutely. So, I mean, the prisons in UK or in Europe is actually a hotbed for radicalism and militancy and extremism. And the authorities, whether in UK or in Europe, we're not doing enough to defang this type of theological fanaticism. And I think it's important to answer theology with theology. If they say, listen, it's right for us now to have jihad, say Allahu Akbar, God is great, and kill someone, slit someone's throat, do all this type of evil criminal things, then they need to justify it from the text. Now, they cannot do so, but it's up to us, moderate intellectual Muslims and right-minded people in the UK and elsewhere, to support this type of theological campaign against fanaticism. How else are you going to defeat this terrorism if you don't speak their language?
That's a very good point. Yes, us making the point, no, you shouldn't respond like that. That's just not going to make sense to someone who has been radicalised like this. But I mean, we talked about this man, you know, it happened in prison, but we know a lot of it's happening online. You know, people are just being fed this stuff. We can see, you know, I'm assuming, you know, this is happening in many other countries as well, these big marches. We saw another one at the weekend, pro-Palestinian march. And again, there'll be many people on that march who are genuinely concerned about innocent men, women, and particularly children being killed and maimed in this horrific bombing attack. But there will also be many who, you know, support Hamas, support the cry from the river to the sea and the annihilation of Israel, the mass killing of the Jewish people. We know because some of the people, you know, they're mocking, you know, the massacre by Hamas. You know, that tells you what they think of, you know, of the killing of Jewish people. But this is, how do you reach those people? Because with all due respect, they're not listening to moderates like you. Is there a fault in the media where there's just too much obsession with dealing with, frankly, you know, extremists rather than moderates like yourself who were trying to sort of bring a bit more inclusivity?
I think there's a disproportionate attention given to the Anjem Chowdhuries and all these fanatical people, and not enough to right-minded Muslims like myself and others. But I think what's important is that unless we deal with the theology, I mean, people keep saying, no, it's not important. You cannot, you know, neutralize radicalism in Islamic community without dealing with the theology. Now, let's just talk briefly about Palestine or Gaza or Holy Land or whatever. The West in particular, sadly, has just ignored the Palestinian plea for a state for 75 years. And we've always been kicking this thing into the long grass.
Yeah.
Always been kicking.
So people are going to have to
now,
deal with that. Taj, we're going to have to leave it there. But I'd love to speak to you again about all of that very soon. Dr Taj Hargey, he's an Imam and his story.